Welcome guys to another video. So today's topic is these extra dimensional entities, what we know as extraterrestrials, okay? And in combination with matrix resets, right? This idea of civilizations being reset, or rather the whole matrix potentially even being reset, um, you know, potentially during the passing of the ages, right? We have the golden ages to the silver to the bronze to the iron, but also the zodiacal ages as well, in which we're currently supposedly in the Piscean age. And we've transversed backwards, which is kind of weird that we go backwards in the zodiacal wheel, counterclockwise rather than clockwise, right? Starting with Aries, going towards Taurus, we've gone from Aries towards Pisces. So who are these beings, right? Who are these extraterrestrial beings? And I kind of gave it away. I don't think they are extraterrestrials. I think they are extra dimensional, right? They are manifesting in this realm at will, in a sense. They're existing outside of this dimension. Could there potentially be beings that exist physically in this 3D realm in our universe? Maybe. It is a large universe, although the problem with that theory is that only 4% of our actual universe is visible to us. Only 4% is something that we can actually, let's say, observe, okay? So only 4% of that is the planets, the stars, and other observable phenomenon in the universe, okay? The rest is dark matter and dark energy, which is essentially the overlapping of these dimensions, being, the etheric and the astrals. And that is potentially where these extra dimensional entities, stay. That's where they can manifest from. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but there or have heard of this, but there are many stories in which people will astral travel, right? And upon going higher and higher and higher, let's say towards space, they actually hit something, and they were wondering, what the heck, how can I be hitting something when I'm in my astral body? They were observing the 3D realm, but then they actually came up against a spaceship, right? And upon impact, the beings inside that spaceship pulled the person's astral body into their own astral spaceship, where they were manifest, right? And explained to them, listen, we actually travel interdimensionally. We can manifest half and half, in a sense. They can be half in the 3D and half in the 4D, right? So that's a telltale sign, like, hey, these beings reside in the 4D or in the astral realm rather than the actual 3D. And I would say, from what ufologists and people that study these phenomena, and even the CIA have researched and shown in their statistics, 90 to 95% of the noticeable UFO phenomenon are happening, are being cited, of the spaceships coming from underground. Now, why is it that they're coming from underground rather from the sky, right? They're seen in the skies, operating in the skies, essentially operating in the moon bases, operating around the sun. The sun can also be a portal, a stargate. They're allowed to manifest in what is known as Agartha. It is also known as Tartaria or Tartarus. This is actually the underworld of this matrix, potentially. And these beings, a lot of the beings they didn't go underground potentially of their own will, right? They weren't or rather outside of their will, they weren't forced underground due to some climactic event. And that is why you see a lot of these elites, they travel underground to meet their parasitic entity hosts, parasitic leaders. That is where they're allowed to manifest, due to the fact that these beings wreaked a lot of havoc in the form of Nephilim back in the day. or titans, otherwise known as titans. And they weren't allowed to have contact with the 3D realm, with the humans anymore, because the 3D realm was still under experimentation. The humans were still in need of growth, or were still in need of development, because the matrix had been reset. So contact had been severed from that 4D to the 3D, right? These beings would just manifest at will from the 4D and would appear. And that's why you see a lot of stories of giants residing in caves, or even they were fossilized potentially as mountains or hills or whatever. You know, we've seen, many of us have probably seen that throughout the internet, where you could see the giants being laid out. But these extraterrestrials are a different form. They're not necessarily the Nephilim. These extraterrestrials are more than likely time travelers. They're more than likely versions of us that split off in a distant future and are coming back to try to amend those mistakes or amend their choices. Now, one observation we have of this is the Greys, right? They are large-headed and they lack sexual organs for reproduction. So that's the first one. Let's say the large-headedness means more than likely they weren't born of a female body. They weren't born inside a woman, right? And that is a direct result potentially of the lack of sexual organs anymore, which means they were created in a sort of what was called those tubes, those incubation tanks, right? And that allowed their head to develop much bigger, their mind developed, their brain grew much more, and they're purely, let's say, more AI, like more mechanical, right? They become digitized. Whoops. Sorry, the wind. So if they've been digitized, that means at some point in the future, remember, the future, the present, the past, these are all connected. That's why time travel is possible. Everything is happening simultaneously, right? So in a sense, the matrix reset, if it were to happen, has already happened. And that's why these beings are coming back to try to split off or to make amends to their decisions, or at least save their own selves or prolong their existence in some way. So if they were digitized, that means at some point in the future, like we're seeing with all this Neuralink, with all this virtual realities that they're trying to promote, right? At some point they merged with technology, okay? And now remember, these technologies, they come from underneath the surface at pinnacle times to further advancement for the civilizations. And remember, civilizations are essentially a game of these higher extraterrestrial beings, or extra dimensionals, or astral beings, or actually even higher than astral realms, more from the god realms, right? I read a claim one time that they were saying, oh, well, that was actually just you guys trying to play gods, playing creator gods, and creating your own civilizations in which you manage, so you're at fault. Again, bringing this idea of karma and debt and guilt and manipulation to try and get us to come back and amend our mistakes that, you know, we used our egoic pursuit of trying to be like a creator and create clones or things like that. But that's not something I agree with, that we were those creator gods and we got out of hand and created our own civilizations and basically became the Anunnaki. That is because we were those divine sparks that were being used to create, right? So how would that make sense for another divine spark to use a divine spark of itself for, you know, such purposes? It doesn't, right? You wouldn't do that as a divine spark. But in a sense, we were manipulated to create these worlds, right? Our creative power was used to create these worlds, to create 3D reality that we see, and to manifest and project that. But the system that was laid over it for the purpose of creating a hierarchy was not of our making, right? At least I don't believe so. So, back to the digitized idea, these grays, at least, they chose to merge with technology. And when you merge with technology, your spirituality goes out the window, okay? And, they have their technological developments. They're able to develop time travel potentially at some point in the future. And now we see them popping up all over the place, in a sense, trying to steal or examine the humans, right? Their past versions of themselves, and find that spiritual gene, find what makes people people, study their brain. Is it in their brain? That's what all these experiments are for. That's where all this digitization and abduction comes in. Right, and not only to mention that they need to prolong their existence and steal that DNA to use it to create these fictitious worlds, these virtual realities, right? And you can imagine how deep the psyop goes, in which they had to infiltrate, or create rather, the New Age phenomenon. They had to infiltrate secret societies. They had to infiltrate politics to create, this Trump phenomenon, in which they pinned blue versus red, Democrats versus Republicans again, and trying to get people to pick a side. And then they interlaced the whole Trump with the Q with this New Age group, thinking, oh, just go to 5D. Trump is playing 5D chess. This and that, trust Trump. And then Trump, of course, pushes the medical indoctrination, the medical infiltration into the body, containing that DNA altering gene inside it. So imagine how deep that goes. That plan has to be set up. And they know all of this, or at least the elites or the secret societies managing this reality. They're under the control of these beings. Know all of this through, what we've heard of as Project Looking Glass. And what is this? This is another form of time travel, but except you're not actually traveling. You can see not too far into the future, so just enough to be able to adapt to what is happening, to these timelines that are actually eventually converging to a singularity. And what is the singularity? This singularity is potentially the event that we hear about in a lot of places, actually. Right? We have the event in the spiritual New Age, in which is some kind of solar flash. We have the event in the Bible of the Armageddon. We have the event of the Matrix resets, right? We have it's called the Phoenix event, like Archaics talks about. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true, that this event is predestined to happen, but that is what Project Looking Glass has concluded, in which all the timelines converge to a singular point, and no matter what decisions we make as a species, or as individuals even, all those decisions, let's say I make a decision to branch off this way, eventually that just curves back. It infinitely and ultimately curves back to the point. Just like we've seen, if you've ever seen those cycles, the cycles, they always flow outwards like some sort of onion. It looks like kind of like an onion, to be honest. But let's imagine like a straight line, and then you have your sine wave on top, your sine wave on bottom, and mini or smaller sine waves on top and on bottom, which they all converge, and this is a sort of cycle. And then within larger cycles, let's say, but these all eventually converge back to the center neutral point. And that is what I believe to be a matrix reset. So in a sense, they are preparing for that. That's why we have all these underground bunkers. That's why we have them pushing all sort of plans in which they're seeking to control populations, right? They may be thinning population, but they never want to exterminate the population, right? It's part of their food supply. They can't be exterminating their own food. But if you're a shepherd and some sort of catastrophe is happening, you're going to let some of the sheep die so that you have less to worry about when relocating potentially, or when restructuring your farm, let's say, right? So they're, in a sense, preparing for something like that, and they are anxious about it, right? For this Phoenix phenomenon, potentially what may happen. And I don't believe that to be a benefic phenomenon, because it plays favorites. It chooses the better, the pure bloodlines, let's say, or the pure people. I don't think it's a benefic phenomenon that we need to look forward to. Nor do I sit here and wait on my butt or promote fear thinking, telling people to buy guns or things like that. This whole realm, in a sense, is an illusion. Anything that happens here is part of that illusion. It's outside your control. If tomorrow an asteroid hit in front of my house, what am I supposed to do about it, right? There's something I can't just sit here and worry about it the whole time, or try to make preparations. I used to be into that, so we need to prepare, we need to buy this and that, and buy food and all that. At the end of the day, whatever happens, right? It's your faith in the one true source alone that's going to get you through it, really. If you need to get through it, and if you die, you die. You need to really be prepared, in my opinion, for the afterlife, for avoiding that reincarnation trap, or that guilt trip that they'll try to bestow onto you if you let yourself get carried away into that, right? So then these time travelers keep coming back from that point of divergence, in which everything converged but then diverged. There was no way back, potentially, after they've made that decision. And we look at their UFOs, right? In Back to the Future, they were using a car. It was a flying car as their time machine. So wouldn't it make sense for their UFOs to also be similar to time machines? I mean, they essentially hook up their consciousness to it, right? It's another digitized form of craft attached to themselves. Potentially only works when they're on it too. That's why some technology was released to, let's say, these Nazis, because they know that they wouldn't be able to reverse engineer something like that without hooking up their consciousness to it too. And they wouldn't let them basically become more technologically advanced than them, for fear of being taken over, right? They try to maintain control at all times. It's a selective release of knowledge. So then we have this idea of these beings showing up in crafts during the culmination of this event, which would be an all-out, potentially, Armageddon during this Matrix reset, in which each side comes to take their race, their DNA back, right? Every one of these gods, of these aliens, created their own race of humans, created their own civilization to manage, based on their own DNA, their own characteristics, qualities, archetypes. And they let them exist in peace for a point of time until they started going to war with each other. And then, of course, we have the creation of the astral entities as well, which was due to our own suffering, our own thought forms basically becoming egregores. And now, at the point of this event, there would be a scrambling of all of these beings, all of these shepherds coming to claim their flock, right? So you have this idea of the Galactic Federation showing up, or the Pleiadians, who even look like us, or Arcturians, who were promoting technologies throughout here, right? All of these beings have their own agendas. They come in and they say, get on our craft, we'll take you somewhere safe, because the Earth is potentially about to explode or whatever. And during that point, you just say, no, I'm not going to 5D or whatever virtual reality you want to take me to, so I can be your slave, right? And this will definitely happen upon the soul's transition to the astral bodies in the astral realm, where relatives come in, or other ETs or ascended masters will come in. They come into my matrix, right? We've all seen that video from Star Trek, that clip. Come into my matrix so you can feed me, right? So you can create my reality for me, because you have the spark, not me. You have the creative potential. Yeah, so that's basically what these beings have been doing. And during these matrix resets, we've seen in the series, 1899, and in Westworld as well, more subliminally, maybe more subtly in Westworld. But in 1899, they essentially anchored themselves to the dying Matrix to keep their memories, okay, to retain their memories, so that they are able to, I forgot what he does exactly. Oh, he switches out the codes so that the old pyramid, the old Tetractus, the Black Pyramid that controls that reality, no longer works. And then he ties it to his own previously created matrix, in which he then has the key to exiting. And the key was actually the woman's ring, and she was able to place in this device that he gave her, the main protagonist that looks like the guy from Dark City, and it looked like the alchemical symbol for the sun. So if you haven't seen my decoding series on 1899, go check that out. It's very interesting. Basically insinuating that the sun is a portal, a stargate again, right? And that's potentially what these beings also use. We've seen UFO activity related to the sun. They could be coming in and out. They could have bases there, even. The sun may not be as warm as they tell us, who knows? Or they may have technology that's able to withstand that. But that's an idea that during this reset, there's an opportunity to exit. There's an opportunity to make your way out ahead of time. So then how do we do that? Again, it comes back to this gnosis, right? This spiritual awareness, or these memories that come back during this pivotal time. And who knows why? Is it that source energy that we're tapping into? Because a lot of people have been questioning more, have been awakening more, if we want to call it that, to higher truths, or at least truths that make more sense, even if they are psyops, even if they are controlled. But people are sort of having that inclination to say, hey, there must be something different, there must be something going on. I need to learn, I need to figure this out, because these things aren't making sense. And I feel like a lot of people have really awakened to this idea of the soul trap, and that we are being used, and that our decisions may not be of our own will, let's say, even. So why is all this information coming at this time? Is there a need? Is there an opportunity that we can use this? We can build up the memory in this lifetime, finally, to actually retain it in the astral, or retain it when this opportunity presents itself, to say, yes, I have finished with this material reality. I have detached, I have fulfilled my desires, and I have no need for these things anymore. I have no need to make money. I have no need to chase relationships. I have no need to pursue the ego's desires anymore. And I really only sought to get closer to the source, to my higher self, to my true spirit, right? So people get more tapped in, more connected to that consciousness, and they become pure, become more Christ-like, potentially. That energy that Christ left 2,000 or however many years ago, they're tapping into that pathway out, and they're remembering, right? And however this opportunity will present itself, we, in a sense, are being prepared for it, right? If it manifests in the form of, like the Bible says, a rapture, and all of a sudden people just start disappearing out of existence, then hey, you'll know what happened, I guess. But those that choose otherwise, those that choose to connect to this technology and remain attached to this realm, they more than likely will end up like these extra dimensional beings in the future, right? And we know the adverse effects of those medical malpractices, right? Injections. It leads to sterility, and it leads to a detachment of the spiritual essence. The astral, it wasn't the astral body, it was more the emotional body, the etheric body. It gets detached, and the soul loses its connectedness, that higher mind loses its connectedness to this body. And I've heard that even potentially could become possessed, right? That is a very potential outcome, especially of those that receive multiple shots. So then, how can you really find that spiritual gene that these beings are looking for when it exists outside of this realm, right? You can't find it in DNA. It's not in the DNA. The DNA is a creation of this realm. It's matter. It's something you can see and touch and change, alter. But I do believe that DNA is tied directly to the Kundalini body, or the sixth body, which you can activate potentially Kundalini in people through that DNA. The DNA is represented by the serpents, or it looks like the serpents intertwined, just like the Kundalini. And that's one of the bodies that may potentially need to be activated, right? You guys have seen my interviews with Amberly and Sherry. Their Kundalini is definitely activated. They have a sixth sense, or a second sight, that they're able to tap into and see these realities. But I don't believe that is the final the body that we essentially need to accept fully and dive into, thinking that that is a gift from the one true source. That just may be another stepping stone that leads to the final exit, because remember what I said, the astrals are another part of the matrix. You're tapping into a higher level of the matrix where these gods reside, these gods and demons. All right, that's long enough. I hope all of that was somewhat connected in a linear, structured fashion, for easy to follow for everyone. But I had a lot of points in my mind that I was trying to share and combine together. So let me know what you thought. Leave a comment below. Give this video a like if you enjoyed what I had to say. Let me know if it resonated with you, and subscribe for future content. I'll see you guys next time in the Whispering Woods. Take care.